I used to be a shift manager at Burger King while I was going to night school. Our restaurant was in a big shopping area near a huge store called Mart. Nobody liked being close to Mart because the boss there was really mean. If something was broken and we told him, he wouldn't fix it. Instead, he would just fire the people who complained. That's not fair, is it? One time, our toilets broke, and instead of fixing them, the boss fired the person who mentioned the problem. Things got worse, and the sewage backed up, making the parking lot smell bad for a whole week. It was really yucky. Our boss really didn't like the big boss. Every year, this Mart guy would get mad at fast food places like ours and show it by piling snow in our parking lots. It was a pretty mean thing to do. But let's skip ahead a little. It's nearly summer and our lunchtime gets really busy. When it's super busy like that, most people park far away at the Mart and walk to our place. One day, some people mentioned there were lots of fire ants in one of the flowery areas in the Mart parking lot. We told everyone to be careful, put up signs, and even asked our boss to hire someone to get rid of the ants. But he said we didn't have enough money and had to wait for the main office to send some. It was tough and annoying, but sometimes things just happened that way. A few days passed, and a lady with 3 kids showed up when the restaurant was really busy. She was friendly and ordered food for herself and her kids. Everything seemed okay at first, but later, she returned looking very frightened. She was crying and shaking, and it was clear that something was seriously wrong. She had a hard time saying that her child, Heath, got bitten by fire ants. I hurried to where the kids were playing and found Heath crying and covered in the ants. It seemed serious. I thought about using the hose at our house, like my dad did for my cousin once, but I couldn't get there quickly enough to help. I remembered a story about a kid who got bitten by ants and died. It felt really urgent. I saw some drinks on a car, so I took them and poured them on the boy's legs to wash away the ants. It made things better, but it wasn't totally fixed. I used my gloved hand to remove the rest of the ants. It was scary, but we managed to get through it. I asked the mom to come over because I wanted to help with the first aid kit. We used it quickly, and then I called 911 for help. The ambulance arrived quickly, and they took care of the kid. Mom hugged me, crying and saying thank you for helping. It was really scary, but I did everything I could to help. After a while, I found out that the boss of the Burger King got taken to court by another family because the place was risky. He lost his job, and they hired a new person. Finally, someone who gets rid of bugs came, and they got rid of those fire ants. Everything turned out okay, but that was the scariest moment when I worked at Burger King. Interestingly, not long after that, I stopped working there too. On a usual busy day at Burger King, lots of people were coming and going, ordering food. I was in charge, making sure everything was going smoothly. Then, something surprising happened. A man wearing a cowboy hat and an old jacket came in. He checked out the menu and then confidently walked up to the counter.
"Are your burgers the best in town?"
he asked with a strong southern accent. I nodded, trying to keep things smooth despite his loud voice. "Absolutely. What would you like to order?" He asked for a couple of burgers and fries, then leaned in.
"You know, I heard about those fire ants in the Mart parking lot. It's really sad what happened."
I was surprised. How did he find out about that? Yeah, it was really bad, but we were able to assist. He laughed softly.
"I heard you spilled drinks on that poor kid's legs. Good thinking, buddy."
I was shocked. How did he know everything? Yeah, I was just trying to help. He winked.
"You did more than that, buddy. You might have saved a life."
Before I could ask more questions, he took his food and walked out, leaving me really confused. I wondered who he was and how he knew so much about what happened. The rest of the day felt hazy. I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't shake off that weird meeting from my mind. When the busy evening rush was over and I was closing the shop, I noticed something. There was a paper stuck between the door and the wall. I opened it and saw messy writing that said, "You're meant for bigger things than just working at a burger place, kid." That note really scared me. I kept wondering who wrote it and what it meant. Even after many days, I couldn't forget about it. But then, about a week later, I saw someone familiar on the news while I was going to work. It was the guy in the cowboy hat from before. He was talking at a charity event on TV. I found out he's actually a really kind person who helps out a lot in our community by funding projects and showing up when things are hard for people. I learned that surprising things happening in my life weren't only about the fire ants or the strange meeting. It was about understanding that unplanned moments and meetings can take us to places we never thought of. Like that mysterious man, some people come into our lives briefly, but leave a strong influence that pushes us towards what we're meant to do. It was when I left Burger King, but it was the start of a new part of my life. That's when I began to believe in how unexpected surprises can lead us to new opportunities. Six years ago, I worked at Burger King because it was the only job nearby after I finished high school. The job was okay, and most of my coworkers were nice, except for my manager, Mike. He acted weird right from the start. He'd have odd talks and stare at people strangely. He even added me on Snapchat and posted really strange things. It made me feel uncomfortable. I worked at Burger King for 4 months, then found a better job and left. A few months later, I got home late from work and saw a car parked outside my house with nobody in it. It was strange. I went inside, did my usual stuff, and got into bed. When I looked out my window, the car was still there, but now someone was in the driver's seat, moving around. I quietly moved closer to get a better view, and was surprised to see that it was Mike, my previous boss. He noticed me looking, quickly started his car, and drove away. It was really unexpected and made me feel uneasy. The next day, I went back to Burger King to find out about Mike. The person working there didn't know who Mike was, but luckily I saw someone I used to work with, Emma. I asked her about Mike, and she said he was let go a month ago. She didn't know why he was fired, only that he wasn't working there anymore. I told Emma that I saw Mike near my house. She looked worried when I said that. Then, she told me something that made me feel uneasy. She said that after I left, Mike talked about me a lot, and she thought it was weird. It made me feel uncomfortable, so I decided to go home, not sure what to do next. That night, I was really nervous and couldn't fall asleep easily. It was weird because I didn't see Mike or his car, not just that night, but for a few nights after. Then, about a week later, in the middle of the night, I heard strange noises outside my window. I was still half asleep, but I saw someone at my window. I switched on the lights and suddenly yelled because I saw someone, but they disappeared. My brother or sister quickly came from the other side of the hallway, and together we called the police. I told them everything that happened, and they promised to investigate. The big surprise in the story happened when the police looked into it more. They found out that Mike used his friends at Burger King to mess with the security stuff. He got info about when I came home and how my house looked. He didn't get fired for being bad at his job. It was because he used Burger King stuff in the wrong way. When the detectives talked to me, they found out that Mike was really interested in me. Even after I stopped working, he kept talking about me and asking people where I was and what I was doing. He even went to my old workplace to find out about me. The police learned that he'd been hanging around my house, trying to see me without me knowing. He probably didn't realize how scary and creepy that was. When the police talked to Mike, he told them everything. He said he did what he did because he really liked something or someone too much and couldn't stop, even after losing his job. He got in trouble for going where he wasn't supposed to and getting into the company's computer stuff without permission. I felt better knowing he was arrested and couldn't bother me again. After everything happened, it was really hard. I had to do a lot to make sure my home and personal stuff stayed safe. I felt really uneasy and like my privacy had been invaded. Going through it all taught me to be more careful and pay attention, even with people who seem nice at first. Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. Last month, I was driving to work really early in the morning, like I always do. I start work at 8 a.m., and it takes about 30 minutes to get there. Before I have my morning coffee, I usually feel a bit sleepy and not fully awake. It's about 7:20 in the morning, and I get in my car ready to go to work. The roads aren't very busy at this time, so it's peaceful. I didn't have time to eat breakfast or make coffee at home, so I wanted to find a drive-thru. I remembered there's a Burger King on the way that opens early. When I spotted the sign in the distance, I drove towards it, thinking I could stop there quickly. I drove up to the window to order food, but the speaker wasn't working well. The person taking my order sounded far away. It was tough, but I finally ordered a big coffee and a breakfast sandwich with hash browns. I used my card to pay and then drove to the pickup window. But something strange happened there. The worker seemed really nervous. Her eyes were big and she was shaking when she gave me my food. At that moment, I didn't think too much about it. I was going to work like usual. When I arrived, I took my breakfast out of my bag. I was relaxing and not in a hurry because I had some time before I had to start working. Suddenly, I noticed a small paper in my bag. It was my receipt, and someone had written "Call 911" on it. I began to feel really worried. I suddenly realized that something might be going wrong, and I start thinking that the woman at the drive-thru might be in trouble. I start wondering if there was a robbery or something bad happening. I chose to call the police and tell them what happened. Afterwards, I learned that a customer had taken out a knife, which really scared me. The woman working there might not have been able to ask for help when I ordered because that person was there, threatening her. The police learned it wasn't a robbery after all. It was actually a strange fight between two customers that got really serious. One of them got really mad and took out a knife, which scared the workers and everyone else there. So, the woman working at the drive-thru wrote "Call 911" on my receipt secretly. She wanted someone to see it and get help without the person causing trouble knowing. I felt really worked up when I realized I was near a big problem without even knowing it. It wasn't a theft, but a frightening fight between people at the store. It made me realize the importance of paying attention to strange situations, even if they don't seem too serious at first.